Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Judy WTF, What the Freud? And today we have with us Christiana Davidson, my lovely therapist in London, England. And thank you so much for getting up at 3 a.m. I guess that would be your time in London to do the show with me. And it's now 4 a.m. So you look very alive and alert especially for 4 a.m. So really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Judy. It's lovely to be back.
And Christiana is a therapist. She's done a lot of work here at the Psychological Healing Center. Could you remind me, you've been with the center for what, 2-3 years now?
No, it's more than that. It's about four or 4.5 years.
Wow, time flies. Okay, well, Christiana is a very seasoned therapist. She knows the mind map inside out. Her particular specialty is narcissism, helping people recover from narcissistic abuse. And so we are doing a topic together. It's kind of a long title, and it is very related to a lot of the shows that we've done in the past. Title is Narcissism, Love Bombing, Intermittent Reinforcement, and the Role of the Inner Critic. And this is a call-in show, everyone. So please feel free to do that and ask us questions. And of course, I'm going to start as usual by breaking down the mind map and also letting everyone know that if you haven't already received a copy of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, please either pick it up off of Amazon.com, or you can get a free PDF of the book. And this will tie things together and really give you the systems background, the theoretical background behind the Be the Cause mind map system. So just to break down the mind map for you, if you could put that up there thank you, Tony. Okay, so there it is. We've got a from through to model, from the past through the craziness of the here and now, and then to the future, the paradigm shift out, the recoding, and peace and unity. So this model was a model that I created and have worked on and worked with for, oh my goodness, close to 10 years now, I would say. And the more I use it, the more metaphorical significance it has. And the beauty of the mind map is it's cross-cultural, so that picture's worth 1,000 words, and that it is relatable to any age group, so you can explain it to children. And as a matter of fact, speaking of children, my grandson broke it down beautifully, and he is actually in the mind map video series that you can purchase still, and that's available for you to do it as a self-help course. And obviously it's always better to have a therapist join you to do the work with you. And so Christiana does this work, and so if you'd like to work with her, please contact the Psychological Healing Center, and I will put you in touch with her, and you can begin your 10-session journey. So Christiana actually picked the topic, and so I'm just wondering why that popped into your mind. It's a long one. I'll read it again. Narcissism, love bombing, intermittent reinforcement, and the role of the inner critic. So what prompted this title?
Well, Dr. Judy, if I think about it, really, I think this is at the heart of the narcissistic relationship.
Yeah.
In fact, I think this is the core of it in many ways. Everything hangs on this sort of on-offness in
Mm-hmm.
the narcissistic relationship. It's the key way
Mm-hmm.
of control that the manipulator uses to keep the victim in a state of confusion, vulnerability,
Yes.
and dependence.
Yes. Yes. And this this whole questioning your own mind bit. I mean, that's where the gaslighting really heats up. And that's where
Absolutely.
nice people, people who trust others or at least want to, or at least assume that everybody is pretty okay, will question themselves because the feedback from the other cracked lens of perception, as I like to call it, is just so off base that they don't believe, almost like, no, that's not possible. Is there something
Yes.
wrong with me? And that's where the inner critic kicks in. So we're going to tie this all together because you're right. It's this intermittent reinforcement. You can call it love bombing. I had a show called Molecules of Love where you obviously can imagine that the theme of it is that you get so little. You get so little, and for that very little, you invest so much. And it's a pretty
Mm,
good deal for the person with the narcissistic dynamics because they get to
mm,
vampire all of that and then some, and then you get
mm,
drained. But as you know, Christiana, the sad thing is that nobody really wins here because this is a system gone wrong. And even if the narcissist, and I will explain how I see narcissism in a minute, even if the narcissist wins and sucks you dry, there's a hole in the soul there. And that person's hole in the soul is endless and needing more and more supply, and it doesn't really fulfill them. And that's another show I want to point my arrow
mm,
toward: fulfillment versus fulfillment. So there's no
mm.
fulfillment with the narcissist, but there's a lot of fulfillment and it's
Yes.
endless.
Absolutely. And like you say, you know, in even the manipulator, the narcissist, the abuser in some ways, they know that it's unsustainable. They know that that sort of means of control of another is going to come to an end. And that's why part of this process, of sort of love bombing and then withdrawing that love becomes more and more as the relationship goes on. The gap between them becomes more and more, is because the narcissist is setting it up so that they can control the end of it.
Yes.
Um, because it's all about the control of it, but they know that it's not going to last.
And now it's going to not last even faster because
Mm.
people like Christiana and myself and a lot of other people,
Yes.
we're on it and you're on it and you're
Mhm.
learning and you're no longer needing to be a sucker to the system gone wrong. And that's why
No.
we're out here psychoeducating
Mm.
people so that you can
Yes.
understand. And one concept that I want to bring into this is positive projection. And what is
Mm.
positive projection? It's what I was alluding to earlier, where we positively project on other people qualities that we have. So we positively
Yes.
project that they're good and ethical and that we can trust their judgment of us and so on and so forth. And that's why the gaslighting works is we positively project that, well, perhaps they're right. Perhaps they're right. Perhaps there's something wrong with my mind. And
Mm.
so maybe you want to elaborate a little bit about what you're finding in your work with people and how that all goes down.
Mm. Yes, Dr. Jude, I love what you've just said there, actually. Uh, what has to be in place in the narcissistic relationship, there has to be sort of a dual idealization. So, for example, the person who's being love bombed has to really value the love bombing of the other person. So they have to be sort of on a bit of a pedestal in order for that love bombing to be also all consuming. Because if the person's not on a pedestal and they don't really value it, it might just be, they might not sort of appreciate it, or they might not be drawn into it.
So are you
So there's got to be,
I just want to really wrap my head around what you're saying. Are you saying
yeah,
that the person who's the person who's receiving the love bombing is idealizing the love bomber?
yes, and you
Ah,
know, so I this is my own thinking that, you know, the person who's being love bombed um is actually, they idealize the love bomber first. The love bomber, or the manipulator, picks up on this
mhm.
and seizes the opportunity then to come in and feed the one being manipulated with idealization from their side. So there's this, and you know, and it's intoxicating for the one who's idealizing this manipulator, seeing all these wonderful qualities, for them then, who are on a bit of a pedestal, to reciprocate that to the person is really, it's like nothing else they've experienced before. It's so intoxicating.
So let's
um
talk about the psychopathology on the other side, because the person who is idealizing the the love bomber, right,
mm,
uh, also has a hole in the soul usually. Okay,
mm,
and this person has been groomed to desire so much
mm,
mirroring, so much
yes,
a love perhaps that they didn't
mm,
get in early attachment. And I refer
yes,
now back to John Bowlby and attachment theory. And so, what does it mean to have healthy attachment? All the ingredients that it takes for mental health in the mother infant bond to begin with: the eye
mm,
contact, the skin contact, the breast meat feeding in an ideal situation, the mirroring,
mm,
and the attunement. And oftentimes, when that is all missing, there is this desire, this extreme
longing.
desire of first of all, there's a lack, and so then there's a
Mm,
desire, and then the love bomber, the narcissist, knows how to feed into that
mm,
lack.
mm,
However, the sad thing is it's not about love, it's about
mm,
power and control, because my definition of narcissism is a system gone wrong where that person has a defense mechanism, a narcissistic
mm,
defense, where they can't properly bond. They're not
mm,
vulnerable. They're not able to really share. They're not able to have
mm,
what I call panel 7, which is synergy. That
mm,
relationship doesn't really exist. You see, panel 7 is a sharing panel where 1 plus 1 is really greater than 2. So they don't have that capacity. So then all they have in their toolbox is power and control. So, how I put it to my patients is that two different games are being played here. One is playing love and intimacy, or they're really playing a kind of a lack of love and desire for intimacy. And the other is playing power and control. And so it's kind of like
absolutely.
two different, like chess and checkers. They're just not on the same game board at all. And
And
it,
what it sets up is in the beginning, it's like, oh my goodness, finally I've found some requited love. You know,
mm-hmm,
somebody's loving me back in the same way that I'm loving them. It's wonderful.
wonderful.
But that's short-lived, and then you're plunged back into the wounds of childhood where your love is unrequited, and
Yes.
you're left, what is it? What can I do to get that requited love back? You know, I'll do anything. I'll go through all the abuse just to get that, a moment of hope
I'm
again,
hopeful.
where I have the sense that there might just be a shift, and they might be seeing me again in the way they did at the start, that they do love me. They do love me. But then that's once again, and that cycle backwards, forwards. It's just, I mean, if we think about it, this is where and why I say this is the sort of the heart of the narcissistic abuse, is because this is where the CPTSD begins. It's that uncertainty, that
Yes.
walking on eggshells. It's
Right. Right.
here that the
Right.
whole of the nervous system is on full alert all the time.
Yes.
Body, mind, and soul, we're hooked up
Mhm.
into this. It's almost like some would describe it as a takeover, a complete takeover. Because, if we think about it, narcissism at its core is about being in control of somebody. But when I say that, I mean they're being in control of their emotions. So as the narcissist, they would be able to control when you feel happy, when you feel sad. But they do it in such a way that you become addicted to that control. So tell me, what greater power could somebody have over someone else than to make the person be addicted to them?
No, no greater power. And you brought in this intermittent reinforcement, and that's another part of the kicker, as you say, because once you love bomb and the person then gets toxically tied in, then you can reel them in with less and less and less. So
Yes,
at first it's hearts and flowers and hearts and flowers and hearts and
yes,
flowers, and then a little
mm,
time goes by, one heart, one flower petal, half a flower petal, not too much heart there. And then just when the person is thinking, gee, I don't think this is for me, even though I'm so in love with the person, boom. Okay. And what is intermittent reinforcement? It's the most powerful reinforcing schedule in the world. If you go to Las Vegas, there it is, intermittent reinforcement. You play your game of whatever, blackjack, or you put your money in the slot machine and a little money comes out, and you're so excited that you double down and triple down, and intermittent reinforcement seals
mm.
the day, and you
It's
don't miss.
that dopamine
Yeah, the
hit, isn't it?
yeah, it's just it's so
Mm,
intertwined. Now we've got
mm,
dopamine and so on and so forth,
mm.
and then the intermittent reinforcement locks that person
Yeah.
deeper into the relationship.
And Dr. Judy, you can imagine the impact of this from childhood, because the clients that come to me now, they've been in this on off love bomb, discard, idealization, devaluation all their lives from the word go.
Yes.
You can imagine the stress that they are trying to process and come out of. They've understood that sort of on-offness,
Mm-hmm.
love bomb discard, is
Mm-hmm.
actually what connection with somebody else is.
Yes, and so
That's
you're going back to the point that parents set the bar, they groom the person for this kind of
mm,
dynamic or
mm,
system gone wrong, as I like to say. And so from that point of view, this is the norm.
yes. And when clients come to me, often what they'll say to me is, and there's often a lot of guilt. They might say, yes, well, my parent, is so mean at times, but this she was so kind. She made me cakes, and she packed my school bag, and and I can literally hear the confusion
Yes.
between the love bomb
Yes.
and the discard. And when that's been in place since childhood, when it's a parental figure, you can understand the levels of confusion and self-doubt that are so much present within adult children of narcissistic parents. They're constantly in a state of, but she's my mother,
Mm-hmm.
and I know she's mean, but she's also got wounds from childhood, you know. So, and sometimes she is lovely, you know, she is a good mother. And clients find it very hard to actually get to the point. And it takes a lot of courage, actually, to be able to step back and say, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
in honesty, the love bombing is part of the abuse.
Right. And
They
in
go together.
this mind, they think it's part of the love and
Yeah.
part of
Yes.
they're misperceiving the whole thing. That's where it gets really, really tricky, is what you said. That no, 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 my mother really is lovely. She baked me a cake. She
Yeah.
packed my
Yes.
lunchbox. She told me I
Yeah.
was beautiful. But
She
then
must love me.
again, she also said that I'm stupid, I'm ugly,
Mm,
and I
mm,
am unlovable. And so
mm,
here's where the whole core belief comes into play. So
mm.
let's go back into panel 3, which is the core belief panel, where all of these psychoviruses, as I like to call them, land. And these psychoviruses are the messages that then become part of the fiber of the person's being. So these messages might be, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not this enough, and I'm not that enough. Okay, so now how does that all play out? So there's the lack, there's the belief in the world, there's the inner critic, as you said.
Yes.
Okay, the
Mm.
inner critic, I'm not this and this and this. And so, do you know that so many people spend a lifetime trying to rescue themselves from their negative core belief? How do they do it? They try different methods. They try pairing up with a love bombing narcissist to
Mm.
disprove that they're unlovable and disprove
Yes.
that they're ugly and disprove that they're
Mm.
worthless. Okay, so a minute
Mm.
they feel that they are worthy and beautiful and all that, and then the dopamine kicks in, and for a minute that relief is felt, like, oh, somebody on the
Yes.
planet thinks I'm beautiful and worthwhile and lovable.
Yeah.
Wow, what a relief. And then
Mm.
boom, boom.
Exactly. That word that you use there, Dr. Judy, relief, that is what adult children of narcissistic parents are searching for. And they've been searching for it all their lives, is the relief from the feelings of being unlovable or being not good enough, or that there's something wrong with them. And you know, that's what my clients come to me with, seeking relief from. And sometimes that, you know, they seek it, like you're saying, you know, in other external validation is kind of how they've been set up to find that relief, whether that be in another person or whether it be in a substance or something like that. It's all about trying to soothe that very it's almost like a, you know, the inner world is a war zone in a lot of ways.
Do
um
you remember when we were children? I remember playing that little game with the daisy. He loves me not, he loves me. And I can now that I see more, I could see how I had this feeling inside of me that maybe I was loved, maybe I wasn't loved. So I'm going to give it
yes.
over to the flower to tell me, external locus of control. I'm going to give it over to the flower to tell me the
Yes.
answer, because it's so painful to live in ambivalence. Does
Exactly.
he? Does she? Do I feel loved? Do I not feel
Mm.
loved? Am I? Am I not? And so it
Yes.
gets even more complicated, because when we go through this stress, we then resort to defense mechanisms such as food, alcohol, shutting down, shopping, being on the cell phone, playing games, whatever is the defense mechanism that is going to quell the pain, fill the hole in the soul, create some level of fulfillment. And then
Yes.
there we go again. chaos, defenses, breakdowns, what the Freud, and then rinse and repeat. And then we're back to the childhood wound, and then the reaction to the wound, and then the triggers of the negative core beliefs, and then down the drain we go. And it's
Exactly.
endless.
And sort of, it doesn't even matter whether the narcissist is still in your life in that way, whether your narcissistic parent is still in your life, because what you do in childhood then is you introject
Right.
that narcissistic parent,
Yeah.
who becomes that inner critic.
Yeah.
And and the inner critic really is it's almost like it tries to convince us of the shame that the narcissist has projected onto us is our shame. And so part of the work that we do in the mind map system is to debunk all of that.
Absolutely.
To bring it out into the light.
Absolutely.
And see the projection.
That's what we're doing. We're dismantling a system gone wrong. And through truth, we get to see the lies, the misperceptions. We get to see how we identify with these core beliefs rather than identify them, which gives us a degree of freedom. We get to see this whole game played out that is based on the template of the family of origin and multi-generations and multicultural wounds. So it's quite layered. And this is a call-in show, everyone. So please feel free to call in, ask questions, and if you like, talk about how you relate to this entire system gone wrong. To add to that, let's look for a moment at panel number 7 again, because it's supposed to be the synergy panel where we feed each other. It's my logo. I love it that much. My dream come true is synergistic relationships, a synergistic world. Most of you may know that the mind map was at one time called Healing Global Disconnect, Join the Human Race. I was very interested in bringing the macro version of the mind map to the human race so that we can become more united. Well, it doesn't look like it's going too well, does it, out there? So you haven't stopped with the of wanting to put that out there in the world. However, I do realize that we have to do it a person at a time. So unhealed people will create a big clash of the isms, will create a macro problem as we see today. And please do call in, or if you don't feel like calling in, write us a message in the chat room, and then our wonderful Tony will read it off, and then we can answer the question.
Do you know?
We have a call.
Got a call.
Okay, thank you. Hi, thank you so much for calling in. And what name would you like me to call you? You there? Call back. Yeah, call back. Please do call back.
I think we're being love bombed.
Oh yeah, for a minute. Did you see my dopamine go up? I saw your dopamine.
Dr. Judy, one of the most lovely things for me as a therapist is to see a client really, really be able to clearly see this cycle of love bombing and discard in the narcissist in their life, and to be able to observe it and not be drawn in by it, to be self-differentiated from it, to step back from it, to see it, and to remain strong and centered in their core, where it's almost like they get to the point where then I've made the decision, I'm not giving my power to you anymore. And this is, that is the liberation, and it's the nightmare of the narcissist. They will go absolutely crazy, trying all different things to try to lure you back into that.
Well, that's why I use Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. In the book, I use the story of the Wizard of Oz as a metaphor for Dorothy, or rather Toto, pulling the curtain back on the wizard and exposing the lies and the manipulations, because that's what we're doing in our work. We're exposing the system gone wrong.
Yes,
And once the
yes,
truth light is shined on the lies, then the gig is up.
absolutely. And the thing is, you can do that on your own. You can,
Yes.
by, watching videos, reading, for example, your book and others. But I do honestly believe this, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a therapist, but I think it's vital that at some point in your healing journey, you have somebody affirm affirm the lies.
Thank you for reminding me of that, because when you were talking about the delight that you have as a therapist in seeing that the person now sees, okay, clear
Wonderful.
sightedness as opposed to
Mm.
cracked lens of perception. And when they see that, why do they see that? I'll tell you, because you and I and other psychologists and therapists are the enlightened witness. And we
Yes,
need
yes,
that enlightened witness,
we do.
because otherwise we think we're crazy. We think there's something
Yes,
wrong with our psycho
yeah,
perception.
yeah.
And when you have somebody stand behind you and beside you to say, you're not
No,
crazy, you're being made crazy. This
mm,
is sick. Okay, do you see what just happened here? Do you see how inconsistent this is? And that's why I'm a big fan of sustainability. So when something is unsustainable, meaning untruthful, manipulative, controlling, coercive, that
mm,
isn't a system that you can grow with. So what are we
mm.
busy doing? Taking down the system. Oh, we have some chats, I think. Some chats in the chat room. Are there any questions in the chat room?
No questions, just comment. I mean, just commenting to each other. They say like they treat strangers kinder than they do their own family.
Oh, very good point. Very good point, actually. Whoever's put that in the chat, you know, one of the ways that this system is maintained is that the manipulator will set up a triangulation with another. So if you're in relationship with them, in order to keep you on your toes and
Mm-hmm.
jumping, trying to get that love bomb back. The ways that they keep that going is by taking some of their attention away from you and giving it to somebody else, but knowing that you can see that, or
Oh, yeah.
calling out, praising another, but not praising you for things that they used to praise in you. So that sort of triangulation of being really kind to somebody else
And if you
is
haven't,
all part of it.
right, and if you haven't dismantled your core belief, then your inner critic is going to kick in. It's not even like your mother or your father have to be there any longer. They can be way deceased, and yet the
Yes.
psychovirus is still in there, and the narcissist is still triggering it. And so, if
Yeah.
that hasn't been dismantled, then this
Mm-hmm.
whole game that you've just described is a very painful one.
Powerful. Mm-hmm.
However, if it's been dismantled, it's sort of like trying to press the lever. It doesn't detonate, it doesn't detonate. And that's what we want to accomplish with you, is that we want to make you detonation free. Okay. So that if somebody says to you, you're this and you're that, and you're unlovable and you're an idiot
Yeah.
and you're not worth it, then you can just
Yeah.
like, okay. And that's what
Exactly.
we know, that that this is a success for you.
And I was even thinking, if you look at the word, I love that word to describe it, love bomb.
Yeah.
It's out of the blue. It's
Mm-hmm.
sort of over the top powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of, it doesn't, it's not really something that you can trust. It's kind of a bomb.
Yeah.
There's something unreal about it, and unexpected almost.
Intermittent. It's intermittent.
Yeah, but then we also have to see that because it's a false thing, it's not love, it's a bomb. We also have to see the opposite, the discard phase, as the same. It's bombing you with discard. So on one hand, we're bombed with love. On the other hand, we're bombed with discard, and neither of them are true. But I say,
Mm-hmm.
what I do say to clients is, be aware, however, of what the narcissist praises you with, what they bomb you with, because often there is some truth in the love bombing. So they will see wonderful qualities in you that they admire, that attracts them, and that looks good for them, and their false self-image. So be aware of what they are love bombing you with, because you are those things, and instead of seeking to be validated in those things out there, it's time to own them within you and say, yes, actually, I am a capable person. Yes, I should be confident.
And why would you, once you're healthy, put your power and control in somebody else's hands? Locus of control. So that means, from the other extreme, that other people get to define you. And where does this start? It starts with the mother-infant connection, because we self-define in the eyes of our mothers and the eyes of our fathers. And if that mirroring isn't very good, then the reflection back of who we are isn't very important and isn't very loving.
But in the same vein, whatever we're being discarded for is a sign too of our gifting, because the narcissist is jealous. So what they will discard us about is often what they're trying to suppress in us. They're trying to punish us for. So in both of these, although it's an awful experience, this love bombing, intermittent reinforcement, it's awful to be caught up in that. However, there are some gems that we can take from this. It's sort of like a gateway to us discovering the truth about ourselves, to discovering our self-esteem.
Yeah, so take a big yellow highlighter, and whenever somebody triggers you, hurts your feeling, is where your negative core belief still lives. Because let's face it, if somebody says to you, oh, Christiana, you have horrible hair, and you know that you don't have horrible hair, you're not buying it. It's like, it really didn't make any dent. But if somebody says to you something that you believe you possess in a negative way, it's boom, there's the trigger. So I look at it as a curse by design. So if you really want to grow, you can see what it is that hurts and triggers, and make a little mental list, or even a list of that, and say, ow, that person really hurt my feelings, because that person made me feel unwanted, unseen, something unspecial. And you make that list and you take it with you into the mind map system therapy process, and we have a call. So thank you for calling in. What is the name that you'd like me to call you by?
Stephanie.
Stephanie, hi. Thank you so much for calling in. So Stephanie, how do you particularly relate to this topic?
Oh heavens. I guess I divorced my husband a few years ago, but he had started love bombing our kids, and bought them cars, gave one of them like my half of our company when I divorced him. And because he had me diagnosed as the dangerous narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I don't know, I'm lucky to be alive, I guess. So I ended up selling my house to get away from him because I really, quite honestly, think that he was teaching my children to use guns at the gun range so he could shoot me.
He was teaching the kids at the gun range about his aggression toward you?
Well, I'm just saying that he didn't put it off that way. You know what I'm saying? It's a kind of sneaky little thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he didn't want to be
I don't know. The whole thing was strange. Huh?
I said he didn't want to be arrested, correct? So.
No, he already had me arrested.
Oh, he had you arrested. Okay.
He had me arrested. He tried to lock me in the psych ward, and they wouldn't keep me.
Mm-hmm. They wouldn't keep it. Now, how long ago did this occur, and how old are the children now?
Well, they're all adults now. Anyways, I know I deal with guilt just because I sold my house to get away, and I was very, very concerned about him turning the kids against me, which he was. I didn't know what to do because he even turned my attorneys against me.
So, Christiana, do you want to speak to that and in the context of what we're talking about?
Yes, I think what you're speaking about here. Is it Jennifer or Stephanie? I think it was, wasn't it? Stephanie. Apologies. Stephanie,
perfect.
It sounds like triangulation is what he's doing here. He's sending you a message by showering your children and being sort of the good cop, putting himself
exactly.
in that role.
Perfect.
And making you out to be the bad one, in the family. So it is sort of love bombing others to make you feel discarded.
And that extra element where he's gifting your own children for being your enemy. You see?
Yes.
The kids what side the bread is buttered on, and giving half of a company is a pretty big gift. That's a big love bomb. Okay.
Well, he stole it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. And these big gifts, as Dr. Judy's saying there, they're not given freely. They come with the demand of allegiance. It's almost like, in a cult where the leader will love bomb everybody, but with the subtle sort of demand that in return they pledge allegiance to them despite the abuses that they see. And there may be an element of this at work as well.
Sometimes you do have to cut ties. You mentioned that you sold your house, and sometimes people have to just extricate themselves the best way they know how, because any sort of a tie with a narcissist is an opportunity for them to control and manipulate. And sometimes you just have to save your life, like when the ship is going down, you just have to jump and leave the ship and let it sink, and then you have the chance to swim. So it sounds like that's what you were doing. Does that ring true for you?
Yes, well, since they had they had arrested me, and actually when the police arrested me, they hurt me. And so, and I haven't pursued that. But I was just, so my mobility is not good.
Now what's what's your relationship like today with your children?
I had to basically totally cut ties with them because they now believe his story. It's so weird. But I guess I did too.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you can see how they would too. Yes?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, because I didn't realize until now that both of my parents were narcissists.
And there's the grooming that I talked about, the parents setting the bar and the blueprint, and this is what you knew to be familiar and familial. And so it's not surprising that you entered that particular dynamic. And so the hope is that there's going to be more and more public awareness of this. We certainly have public awareness of the coronavirus and other viruses, and I hope people can understand that this is just as deadly, if not more deadly. It's a deadly psychovirus, and every time, right, and every time we try to fish our negative core belief out of the cesspool of pain, of our own pain that we're drowning in, and we pair up with the herder. I did a YouTube called The Herder Can't Be the Healer. And then I did another one called The Herder Can't Be the Healer Unless, and the unless is unless they heal, right? But we're incessantly looking for the herder to then convert them into the healer, to convert them. I have people who come to see me and they say, Dr. Judy, I've got to break up with such and so, but I love them so much. I'll tell you what, I'm breaking up with them, but I'm going to send them to you. Please fix them. Please fix them, because I love them so much. And, you know, good for them if they show up. Good for them, because I think it's fun for a narcissist. Let's go with the compassionate part of our souls. Do you think it's fun for a narcissist to take down their walls and to take down their narcissistic shell and expose the pain that they then had to hide behind the wall? Not fun, okay? So we've got to understand why is this narcissism happening? Why did they have to cut their heart out? Why do they lack empathy? Because they were hurt so much that they made some kind of a decision that people were not okay. And the only thing left to do with people is just to control and manipulate them. And they're not
a bully.
Yeah, they're not for love, not for love. Yeah.
Exactly.
But they're, you know, on the other hand, compassion, great, yeah. However, still, you don't want to embroil yourself with somebody like this, obviously, because even if you have compassionate distance from them, you don't want to engage because it's not something that's going to bring light to your life.
Exactly.
And in some ways, this is part of your healing process, although it may not feel like it at the time. You know, you will look back on this phase and see how far you've come. So don't allow this to rob you of your belief in yourself and your experience.
Absolutely.
You know, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is making you doubt yourself. Don't let that happen.
And you know, when you become more familiar with the system and you learn how to think like a shrink, in the back of every single one of my panels chapters is a connect the dots, think like a shrink summary of it. And that's what you will be doing with your life, is like, oh, I see how I've been groomed, and now I see my core beliefs, and now I see why I chose this person who put salve on the core wounds for a little, and then pulled the rug out from under my feet, and I fell through the cracks and down the rabbit hole, into serious, deep, dark depression. And so now we get to expose all of this. So your vulnerability.
And finally see
Right.
that you were never the problem. You actually, it wasn't you that was the problem. You know, in your childhood situation, you were a hostage, as Dr. Judy always says, and the situation in your life today is a symptom.
Right. So the way I
that.
like to put it is, we're not the cause of part one of our lives, because we're unconscious, we're groomed, we're blueprinted, and all that. However, once we are conscious now, and this is not too fun either, because now we're the cause of the outcome of part two of our lives, which is wonderful, and also very laden with responsibility, because now it's on us to exercise what we know and vet people properly and have boundaries that actually work for us, and choose people wisely. Okay, so even though you think, yes, I'm the cause of part two of my life. Wow, it's a big responsibility. Yes, you are the cause of part two of your life. Now you've got to eat right, choose right, think right, and all of that. So the work never stops.
Never.
Nope.
Never. And the work really at the end of the day is about being able to find your validation in you at long last, no longer at the mercy of others to control how you feel about yourself or about anything. Your strength, your security, your safety is in you. And that's the real, the real liberation, the real joy of doing this work.
The real locus of control. So thank you very, very much for calling in. And if you feel that you would like to reach out to us, please do. And I think it's crucial at times like this to have an enlightened witness, especially when your children see you in a certain light and the person was able to manipulate the psycho-perception of who and what you are. It's quite devastating. And so that's why it's so important to have other people outside the system who have the capacity to see more clearly. So please do reach out if you'd like more help, okay?
I will. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Our pleasure. And if there's...
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And yes, if there's maybe one other question, we have a little bit more time. And please do call in. We have time for another caller inner and or a question in the chat room if you'd like to ask a question.
We do have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
How do you expose the narcissist to the courts and others when in legal situations such as divorce?
You keep a very good paper trail, okay? So you got to catch them in their lies. Narcissists hate the truth. And so they may say one thing and then they are depending on the fact that you didn't write it down, that you didn't note it, you didn't leave a paper trail, because they're writing things down to gain favor in the legal system. So you just have to really show inconsistencies, because remember, the legal system, they're not psychologists, right? But they're supposed to play in a logical, ethical field. And so if you expose their lack of ethics, then you're on the better side. Okay? So,
and also,
yeah,
they can also in sort of the legal situation where you are going through a divorce, there can be the tendency of the one who has been love bombed to feel a bit of guilt about exposing the abuser or the narcissist, and that's part of that intermittent reinforcement at work, is that you feel guilty. Well, look, sometimes they were nice. I don't want to make their name look terrible, so I'll just hold back a bit and I won't share that, or I won't but it's important to be able to not act on emotions in this situation, but to do what you need to do.
Also, when you're going through a divorce with a narcissist, I highly recommend that you choose a therapist who specializes in narcissistic abuse recovery. You will definitely need to keep your head on straight. And I also recommend that you choose an attorney that is familiar with narcissistic abuse so that you can use the psycho-legal team to prove your point. And again, knowledge is king or queen, and the more knowledge you have, the more you can systemically show the court that what went down. Like, look, people, it started this way once upon, like storyboard it. The way I storyboard the mind map. Once upon a time, there was a child that went through these wounds and reacted this way and encoded these horrible feelings, and then everything went down. So if you can track it nicely, clearly, logically, and shut down your amygdala, shut down your emotional system, because you're going to look really weak and powerless if you're reacting and firing off and complaining and demeaning and devaluing the other party. You do not want to get embroiled in that. You want to stay centered and logical and very systematic, and paper trail. So don't respond. There's a computer function that the court system puts out called I think it's called the Wizard. And so if you have to communicate with your spouse, who may be the mother or the father of your child, then you communicate it through the Wizard, because you cannot use negative words, and if you do, it's on record. It's filed in the court system, or at least recorded by the court system. So be smart. Yeah, proactive, smart, and not reactive. So thank you for that question. And we have maybe another minute. Please note that we have merch in the merch shop. You can buy a Be the Cause t-shirt. You can purchase the Be the Cause mind map system that includes the video that I host, and then you can pair it with therapy, and certainly reach out to us for consultation so that we can really take a look at what the Freud is going on with you, and then we can set up the treatment plan, which is the mind map. That's the template. So anything else you want to add, Christiana?
Well, I mean, only this short, reflection is that, at the end of the day, what we need to do is we need to become our own love bomber and not outsource it.
Great. I love it. Right? Keep it homemade. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Awesome. And I really enjoy doing shows with you, Christiana.
Likewise.
It's so much more interesting for me to bounce ideas off of you and with you and the audience. And thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining in. And Christiana will be back, and I'll be on air as usual next week. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Dr. Judy.
And if you've enjoyed my show, please subscribe to my channel. If you need help, please call the number below.